Trish and Rob McGregor welcome you to a place where all kinds of phenomena flourish. Voices whisper ancient secrets, signs and symbols are abundant. UFOs, ETs, ghosts, and even the dead move about freely. Here we meet authors, researchers, and investigators of the mysterious, the strange, and of the inexplicable anomalies that surround us. Step out of the everyday world and take a journey into the mystical underground. Recording. And if you guys are ready, we can start in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Mystical Underground. Thank you for joining us. This is Rob McGregor and
Trish McGregor.
And our producer tech magician, John Posey. You can go to the mysticalunderground.com where we make regular blog posts and where you can find out about our books. Among them are Phenomena, Harnessing Your Psychic Abilities, The Secrets of Spirit Communication, Sensing the Future, and Aliens in the Backyard. Our latest book is called The Shift, Reports from the Mystical Underground. Trish's latest novel is called White Crows. Rob's latest nonfiction book is called Breathe, A Master Diver's Survival Tales, a collaboration with Rick Bedowa.
Patricia Walls is a certified hypnotherapist and author, an intuitive, spiritual mentor, international speaker, and workshop leader. That's a lot of stuff. Patricia's specialty is creating practical energy exercise to instantly shift your vibration, allowing you to take charge of your life. Her motto is, it doesn't have to be hard. Welcome, Patricia.
Welcome, Patricia.
Thanks for having me on. All the books that you guys named are all my favorites.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we didn't mention there that you have written 9 books, and the most recent one is called The Hall of Records, which we're going to talk about.
Actually, I've actually published 8 books, co-authored 3 more, but the 9th book is not published yet. That one is The Galactic Earth Beings. But Hall of Records was actually my 4th book.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, how do we keep up with you?
Same way I keep up with you. It's not possible.
All right.
What I'd like to know, describe the work you do with individuals. What is it you do?
I'm a medium. I'm a channel, and so I one of the kind of jokes in the community with me, and when I'm giving a class or a lecture or whatever, is don't ask me to create an agenda, because I'm a channel, and channels cannot follow an agenda safely or securely. You know, we can try, but it will only muck up everything. So what I do when I have a client is I tune in and see, what it is that's the beings, and I call them the beings because I don't have a different name for them. They're my collective, right?
Okay.
And I called them the beings for a long time, and I always felt weird about that until I was listening to Dolores Cannon one day, and she called her collective the beings, and I went, okay.
It's okay.
It's okay. If Dolores can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems that mediums have different names for their guides. It's like a team. It's the beings. Everybody has a different term.
Yeah, well, they're all us anyway.
Yeah, right.
So I a long time ago stopped trying to say, oh, MODOK is talking right now, or Metatron is talking, or Azrael is talking. I stopped trying to do that because very often they all talk at the same time, in one voice. And so I just said the beings. It's just easier.
Yeah.
And it confuses people, and I like to confuse people. So
So Patricia, how did you come to this kind of work as a medium? Did you have some inclinations about mediumship or psychic abilities when you were a child?
My DNA, uh, my my mother's father was clairvoyant,
Okay.
and as a child, he used to tell us stories because I'm not a child anymore, and so we're talking in the I was born in the 50s, and so when and he was born in like 1901, I think, or maybe earlier than that. But anyway, in his day, he walked from town to town to find work. And he used to tell us stories about the houses that he stayed in. He would find an abandoned house to stay in.
Wow.
And he would tell us stories about talking to the spirits that lived there, and
Well,
all the stories that they would tell him.
where did
Hmm.
he live?
I'm from Louisiana,
Oh, okay.
east of Shreveport. And
Okay.
so all of my family, I don't really have contact with my cousins and that sort anymore. They think I'm weird. So I just let them stay in that land that they're in. But my children and my grandchildren are all born wide open.
Mhm.
They are all born clairvoyant. I'm not clairvoyant. I'm claircognizant. But so in answer to your question, it's in my blood, and I've been this way my whole life. But I really just started trying to work with it in my 20s, because before that, it just wasn't cool.
Yeah. Can you explain for our listeners the difference between being clairvoyant and claircognizant?
So clairvoyant, the clairs, right?
Right.
Clairvoyant,
Yeah.
clairaudient,
Right.
clairsentient, right? So
Mhm.
clairvoyant is when you can see, literally see full body apparitions and that
Mhm.
sort, right?
Mhm.
And I believe that we're all born with all of those gifts. And there have been times in my life when I've seen a full body apparition that I didn't know the difference between a third dimensional body and it,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So I have seen them, but it's not often.
Mhm.
I have smelled smoke. I have heard voices. I have felt, I've been touched, but it's not often. And so I identify myself as claircognizant instead, which means that I had to learn to just trust that I know what I know.
Huh.
Okay.
Interesting.
And to me, I mean, I'm a clair snob, right? So for me, claircognizance is the best of the best, because we really, so when I'm working with someone, if one of their dead relatives comes through, I don't see them, but I can tell that person what they look like, what they sound like, what they're wearing,
Hmm.
what they're saying, because
Hmm.
I just believe and I trust that I'm knowing what I know. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It's sometimes both Rob and I have instances like that. Not very often, but I mean, when we do,
Right.
you do know
Yep.
what you know.
Right.
It's hard to explain to somebody why you know it.
Yeah, and you have to trust it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing in working with most of the people that I work with. Probably 70% of the people that come to work with me don't know what their clair is,
Uh-huh.
right? And so it was a real barrier in working with hypnosis sometimes, because people sometimes would say, I don't see anything.
Hmm.
Because Dolores's template was, could you see a red bird?
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
Could you see a blue car? And the clients were like, I can't see that. So what do you want me to do now? All I see is black, right?
Yeah.
So I
So,
had to find different ways to work with people. And so I developed, when they first showed up, I would take them through a little exercise and tell them, can you close your eyes for me? Tell me, what does your living room look like? Just describe it in the best way that you can. What does your furniture look like? What does the front door look? What does it smell like? Right.
mhm.
And then I would tell them, that's what you're going to experience when you're in hypnosis. That's when I'm asking you, what do you see? It's because you've already seen it
Yeah.
and you know what it looks like.
Huh.
You have to trust that you know what it looks like.
Mhm. Okay.
What it, suddenly I
Yeah.
can't talk. um, what Explain to us what the Hall of Records is.
The Hall of Records. So eons ago, when I was working with what I call earth medicine, which is my version of shamanism, I was working with the Earth Mother, and she presented herself to me as a being, and she told me her name was the Earth Mother. But she would have me take people on journeys inside of the earth to meet her, to do healing work, all kinds of things, to meet their guides and helpers. And at one point she said, I want you to take this person to the Hall of Records. And I was like, I don't know what that is. And this was almost 40 years ago. So
Wow.
I just started trusting the how she led me in that. And it just sort of formed itself over 40 years, because nothing stays the same. Everything evolves. It's supposed to evolve anyway. So, the technique and the storyline of it just changes over the years. But I started doing some research because the universe doesn't send only one person anything, right? The information is out there, and it's whoever links into it, right? And so I was doing research, and the only thing that I found was Edgar Cayce's reference to the Hall of Records being under the Sphinx. And then there were a few books out there, but amazingly enough, the books were about architecture, Hall of Records, And I thought, well, somebody has to know about this. And so somebody told me, no, you're talking about the Akashic Records. So I took a class in the Akashic Records, and it was not that. And because I didn't trust that, I actually took 3 classes on 3 different teachers with the Hall of Records. Still not that. So the Akashic Records, in the classes that I was taught, the Akashic Records is where you go to look at your book of life. A book of life. Okay. That includes everything for you. You can't make any changes. You can look at the book of life and find answers, right? The Hall of Records is where you go to make changes. The Hall of Records, number 1, is inside of you. And the Hall of Records is where all of your records are stored throughout all of your soul history. And we're talking 950 billion years of the universe, okay? So all of your soul history, all of your contracts, agreements, promises, blood oaths, commitments, bills of sale where you were sold, right? Court judgments, court condemnations, all of that is in your Hall of Records. Everything you've ever experienced is in your Hall of Records, usually as some form, right? And it's not always paper. And so, so the Hall of Records is immense. It's not one room. It's not one book, right? And it also includes all of your ancestors' records.
Yeah, Patricia, you talk about burning some of your records. Why would you want to do that?
Okay. So when she first started taking me there, I was just learning and seeing what worked with people, right? And my ego mind said, if it's a contract, you can stamp it paid. Right. If it's a debt, you can stamp it debt paid. You can cross it out. You can rewrite it. That was my ego mind. And so, but over the years, what I learned from working with people is that it is not that it's destroyed if you burn it, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Okay. So the reason that you would burn a record would only be you would be burning how it is affecting you in this current consciousness. Okay. It doesn't necessarily change what happened. So in other words, if someone is experiencing poverty in this lifetime, first thing we do is go to their Hall of Records and ask out. And so when I take someone there, I'm their guide. They are doing the work. I'm just doing I'm calling them, leading them there and doing the calling for the records. And so if someone was experiencing poverty and lack in this life experience, first I listen to my intuition, because not everybody has the same experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I may ask to see all of your records throughout all of your soul history, all of your contracts, agreements, promises, blood oaths, whatever, that relate, that have caused you to live in poverty in this life experience. And so a person will see them in whatever way they were created. I mean, were they scrolls? Were they paper? Were they stone tablets? You know, was it a cave drawing? Was it, I mean, because you're talking 950 billion years. They weren't writing things, right? Some people have seen their records as, you know, when you go to the museum, you've got these massive portraits, or really like scenes. Scenes where something has happened in history. One person, that's what their records were stored in. Their hall of records looked like a massive library, museum, with all of these paintings depicting the scenes of her life. You know, one person saw their records, they were represented as live organic beings.
That's interesting.
So, yeah, it's different. It's because it's particular to that person, you know?
Yeah.
Is this similar to, I'm sorry, Rob, is this similar to Ken's library, Ken Lloyd's library that he talks about?
It is a portion of Ken's library. So when, so Ken was referred to me by a Narnia. I don't know if you've met a Narnia, amazing being. You got to meet her if you haven't.
Is she the woman in Mexico?
Yes.
Okay.
So Ken was referred to me by a Narnia because Ken was talking about the living library, and she's like, oh, wait a minute. You know, so she sent Ken to me, and Ken and I had a conversation. And admittedly, I was a little stumped at first, and I thought, well, if, you know, what is the Hall of Records, you know, in comparison to the living library? Right? What am I doing here? And so I had to go in and do some meditation, ask the beings, you know, WTF, basically, you know. And so, which is my favorite word, and I'm not going to say it. So I had gone in and said, you know, what's going on? You know, what is the difference? And so that and conversations. So Ken is working with the living library, which is all of consciousness, right? All of consciousness. When I'm working with the Hall of Records, I'm working with one individual's records. Yeah. And where Ken goes into all of your history and makes changes for you, I don't do that. I take a person there, I call for their records, I have them see the records, and I ask them, what do you want to do with it?
Right. Do you want to change anything?
Right. And so they burn the records. And so what I and I'm not dismissing Ken's living library has a purpose. My Hall of Records has a purpose. And so the Hall of Records is about empowerment. Because I could tell people all day long, I went in and cleared that for you, and it's not going to mean anything to 75% of them. Right. But if they're there, if they're looking at it, if they're seeing it, perceiving it, and they burn the records, that's real to them.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Our reality's everything.
John?
Can I ask a question? Is there a way for, well, and so you were just saying that it's an individual's history. Is there a way for a collective to burn, a collective consciousness to burn history?
Good question.
Yeah.
Because of the law of free will, I don't believe in that. I work within the law of free will, right?
Sure.
So
But if everybody's on the same page, could you get everybody on the same page and
if you could,
correct
but do you know
something?
how hard that is?
Well,
Sometimes,
Yeah.
yes.
I
Oh,
mean,
yes, for sure.
really, to get everybody to agree, even 5 people, to get them to agree on one thing is almost impossible. But so I have taken people there, and they've seen the record and they've said, I don't want to burn that. For whatever reason, I can't think of a reason, an example right this second, but I have had people say, I don't want to get rid of that yet.
Interesting.
The law of free will says they have a right. They have, I've given them the opportunity to resolve this part of their life, this struggle that they're having. But if they don't want to resolve it, then, it's like, okay, what else are we going to work on? What's next? So I don't personally feel, again, because my purpose is working to empower individuals. I don't work on a collective platform.
Yeah. So you write in Hall of Records that we came into this life with a blueprint, an agreement that we all decided upon for this life we're living. I've got a couple questions about that. How does that concept of coming in with a blueprint fit into our sense of the law of free will, as you mentioned? And what happens if we don't follow the blueprint?
So I don't know if I wrote it in that book or if it's since I wrote the book. But as I said, everything shifts and changes, right? You expand, you gain more knowledge and information and wisdom. So where I was taught from the beginning that we came in with a blueprint, sorry, and that we agreed to experience this, and this, right? But we could change our mind. And what that does is it creates another timeline, right? So what I've learned since then, or maybe I wrote it in the book, I don't remember, is that we don't have just one blueprint. We have many blueprints. We come in with alternate plans because we are so creative, right? So yes, we come in with a blueprint. Say we come in with a blueprint that says, I'm going to marry Steve in 1999. I'm going to meet Steve. I'm going to marry him. And then 1999 comes along and Joe pops up. And you look at Steve and you look at Joe and you go, I think that Joe may be the better bet. Steve would have given me these particular experiences, but Joe could give me these particular experiences. And I've grown spiritually, and Joe would fit my profile better than Steve would at this point, right?
Interesting.
So although it was your blueprint to marry Steve, Joe's a better bet at this stage of your ascension, your expansion. So you create another timeline. And I have a bit of experience with that. And so what I've found is that there's still a timeline where you marry Steve and you go on and do whatever it is. But in your current third dimensional reality, you're living this timeline that you created.
With
right?
Joe.
Because of the law of free will. Right.
Okay. This may be off the topic there, but this has fascinated me since I first heard Ken speak it. What is the light language? Where does it come from? How do you learn it? What is it?
Okay.
I mean, you wrote a book on it, right?
3 of them.
Three of them, okay.
Because every time I write a book, the beings start talking to me and giving me more information. So the language of light language, is our first language. And so the story is, or the story went, there was the Tower of Babel. And before we went into the Tower of Babel, we were all speaking the same language. I think everybody can agree on that one, right? It was called the light language, the universal source language. Everybody spoke it, not just humans, everybody spoke it. Okay, the whole universe spoke this language. And when we went into the Tower of Babel and we came out, we were split into different zones, different languages, right? So there's the Palladian, the Syrian, the Arcturian, the Draconian, the English, the Spanish, the Chinese, whatever, right? So we were all speaking these different languages, and we could not communicate with each other anymore, right? So whenever I'm speaking the language of light, and it is our first original source language. There were people speaking light language. I mean, since the beginning of time, they've still spoken the original language. Portions of let me rephrase that. Portions of the original language still. So I was finding that sometimes when I and I call it transmitting and channeling, because you can't recreate it. Some people do, but I can't recreate it. And so if I can't recreate it, I'm channeling it. It's not coming from me. Okay. And so I was asking, because sometimes when I was in the beginning, when I was transmitting it or channeling it, people would say, "You sound indigenous," and then one of my sister friends, they would tell her, "You sound like an Italian grandmother, you sound Chinese, and you sound like a dragon," but so everybody sounded different. And so when I was writing the book, I asked the beings, "Explain this one to me, Lucy, because if it's light language, how are we all sounding different?" Okay. And they came back and said, when everybody came out of the Tower of Babel and they were speaking different versions, different languages, they were speaking a fraction of the one source language. So it's as though it splintered off, right? So whenever we are transmitting light language, we're still only grasping a portion of that original language. And the beings told me that we still, as dense third dimensional organic bodies, can't hold that much energy.
Interesting.
Okay. And so we still can only take in that much frequency at a time. And so then I asked, well, because I was noticing that I give what's called light language galleries a lot. It's a gathering of people, and I do a group transmission, and then I'll go from person to person and do individual transmissions. And when I'm transmitting light language, I can hear myself. It's not, it's coming through my mouth, but I'm not there, but I can hear it. And I was noticing.
Do you understand it?
No.
Okay.
And let me tell you why. There are people who say they can translate it, and I'm not countering that, but I am going to offer an explanation.
Okay.
Because I am intuitive, a lot of times when I'm transmitting light language, I'm in a trance. And so I am more connected to my higher self than I am on an everyday basis. So when I'm transmitting light language, there are times when I receive a message for that person, an intuitive message, but it is not light language, right? It's an intuitive message. And so I'm thinking that when people say they can translate it, that's what they're doing. They're receiving an intuitive message at the same time that they're transmitting. And one young woman, and I know she was young, but I just got the feeling that she was young. And I had read an article and I haven't been able to find it since. So it was one of those things, that your guides, helpers, source, whomever throws information at you. And it's like, okay, here you go. But don't try to look for it again because you're not going to find it. But there was an article that this young woman wrote, and I've shared it along for a long time. But in the article, she said, if you can imagine like one click of the tongue, one vowel, right? She said that one thing contains thousands of frequencies of information.
Huh.
And how can you translate that into English?
With great difficulty.
You can't.
So Patricia,
that's like trying to translate an entire dictionary into one sentence. Can't.
Yeah. Can you give us an example of light language for our listeners who may have never heard
Sure.
what it sounds like? Sure. Okay.
Let me add this though. So transmitting light language is done in several ways. So it's the vocally, you can translate it, you can transmit it vocally, spoken, right, into what we call dialects, because our human brain has to name things. And then it's sung. And when it's sung, it sounds different. It's a different, what we call dialect. And it's also a higher frequency. And so the beings were telling me that when the difference between singing it and speaking it is that when you sing it, you are working with the solfeggio frequencies.
With the what?
Solfeggio frequencies. Yeah. And so like the Hertz, like Beethoven, the solfeggio.
Right,
yeah.
Okay.
So, and then there's also, signing it with your hands, moving your hands, your body. That's a different one, like sacred dance, like hula and, that. Writing the symbols, which is, which looks like this,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Like a
So,
mandala.
Yeah, like a mandala.
no, it's the symbols inside of it that I wanted you to see.
Hmm.
Let me see. So these, can you see those?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So those are light language. Those are symbols those are frequencies. So each brush has thousands of codes in it, right? So there, and then also, recently the beings told me that we also emit light language. Are you a Reiki master?
No.
No.
I've had Reiki. I mean, done
So
on me.
So anyone who's taken a Reiki course, they're told that there are times when we just emit those healing frequencies, right? And I found that with light language as well, that sometimes we just emit those frequencies. It doesn't have to be outwardly, Okay. So with light language, because it's different frequencies, downloads of information, alignments. So whenever I transmit light language, I usually tell people just to focus in to receive, release, relax, receive, and release, the 3 R's. Because sometimes you'll get memories or thoughts or body sensations, pains or whatever. And if it's a memory or a thought, it's coming up to be released. Body pain too, it's coming up to be released. So sometimes people reported that, I thought about my Aunt Susan. She's been dead 30 years. I don't know why that came up while you were doing light language. Well, because there was apparently something that you needed to release and it came up to be released. And so whatever thoughts, images, or feelings that you have when you're listening, just say release. Because if you focus on them, you're holding them in place, right?
Uh-huh. Interesting.
Yeah. And so what I do when I'm transmitting light language is and I had to ask the beings to slow down my process and show me what I'm doing. Because sometimes we just do things naturally. And so what they showed me was that I like put my little Patricia over here, my little ego over here. And I just speak or say or intend that I would, that I'm willing to be a channel for these energies, for this message. And so then I'm not in control of it, you know? Okay. Mehanta hele o hambohi cha la miashido o dobea ante halai en de beke o libi o le mi inti hala in chilo o poiba. Bobe antai en mo umpai unko imichi. Ayesht aile oama. O miki animichi ibi Hawaii mono uin batayala. Ateala hiatiki wo unko ipi ashe le chiro uma. Maye ne eti alahaite akayuka. Be bi iata bayishte olaya. Me anamaya na miyewo de peke uluba. Bohambahatai eneme eke o ko biashte eleanche bo bianda namea anteala ech iko.
Wow.
Interesting.
That is.
Yeah.
It almost sounds. Oh, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I was just going to say what I picked up me is that I got a very much of a sense of Hawaii, like a Hawaiian time from the past. Does that make any sense?
So what were you going to say first?
Trish?
What came to my mind was a dog that I had to have put down last year. And I said, okay, release, because I still feel bad, about it. So that's what my experience was.
Good. So another part of that, we're still only transmitting a portion of the one language. Another part of that is everybody will hear what they need to hear. Okay. And so what I just transmitted is going to sound different to you than it does to him, to one of your listeners. They're going to hear something different. And when I asked the beings about that, why is that? What they said was, so one of the things that I found is when people come to work with me, I don't know why they do it, but a lot of times they'll ask me where they're from. And when they first started asking me that, I was like, spark of God. I don't, it's where we're all from, isn't it? Spark of God. And I could, it always confounded me. Why would they ask me that question? I can't answer that. But in the back of my mind, I always knew that they were asking me, because usually these were people who were very focused on the extraterrestrial, on the Pleiadians, the Sirians, the Octurians. And there's a little part of me that said, they're asking me to tell them what planet they're from. And I was resistant to that, right? And so, and I'm resistant to that because, we identify with, what is it, 7, maybe 11 or so different star groups, different star nations. There are like billions of those things, right? And some of them we don't have names for. And you want me to tell you what planet you're from?
Right. Yeah, that's big.
Yeah. And so I was asking the beings about that too. Why are people always asking me that? And why does the light language sound different from one person to the next? And what they told me was, twofold. They said, first of all, when we came into existence as sparks of God, we didn't all take form at the same time, right? Some of us still haven't taken form. Some of them have just existed as sparks of light beings, right? the archangels, the grid keepers, all of those. Some of those have never taken form, and but the ones that did take form, they didn't all take form at the same time, I think, which is sometimes why people will say, oh, you're an old soul or you're a new soul, right? It all depends on when they decided to take form. And so the beings told me, what people are asking me is, what is the first planet they took form on? That's what they want to know. When they say, where am I from? They're really asking, what is the first planet that I took form on? And so whenever I'm transmitting light language for somebody, the reason it sounds different is because I'm transmitting from their planet, from their home language. And I know there's sometimes that when I transmit light language for people, they'll cry because
they
touches
recognize
their
it.
hearts. Yeah, it's because they recognize it and they're like, oh, I know this. I know this
Finally.
sound. It's my home sound. But yeah.
How can we get world leaders to communicate with light language? That would solve a lot of problems.
Well, first of all, most of them aren't. Well, never mind.
Yeah.
They're just not there. They're just not
right, exactly.
connected in that way.
Right.
But I found a huge resurgence of people speaking light language, after, it might have even been after 1987, the harmonic convergence.
Oh, right.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of people came online, but then again in 2012, a lot of people came online in 2012. Right. And I've actually met a lot of people now, because when I first became aware of it, I mean, I was writing the symbols and didn't know what they were. But when I finally became aware of the spoken light language, it was Dorian Light and Judy Satori. And I call them the grandmothers of light language, because 30 years ago, these women were on the big stage in front of thousands of people speaking light language.
God.
How brave is that, right?
Yeah, really.
I know I've noticed when talking to Ken, you're having conversation with him, suddenly he'll go into light language and then back to regular conversation again. And it occurs to me, is he like obsessed by the light language or something, that it just flows out like that during a conversation?
So I can't answer for Ken. I know other people that do that as well. And the way that I interpret it from my ego mind, the way that I interpret it is, when I am transmitting light language, like I said, I'm in a trance. I'm out of my everyday egoic mind. And when I listen to Ken do that, what I'm seeing him doing is bouncing back when he finds himself coming back into his egoic mind. Then light language will happen in order to bounce him back into that more expanded consciousness. I think that's what he's doing. I can't say that, but that's what it feels like when I hear him do it.
Yeah. I think about 4 years ago, you had a podcast with the woman you mentioned earlier, Anarnia, is that how her?
Anarnia, yeah.
Right. That was fascinating. I listened to that twice. I mean, you just kind of introduced her and she talked for about a half an hour nonstop.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about her? And
she is an amazing being, and she what she was referred to me um, by someone on Facebook, one of those groups on Facebook, because she was a walk-in. I think she said 3 years ago she dropped in, and as a walk-in, so there are different kinds of walk-ins. There are some walk-ins that just completely take over the body and you don't remember anything, right? Most walk-ins are integrated slowly, but she was one of those that was just dropped in, and she had to really, learn how to integrate what was going on here. And so one of the people that she knew in a Facebook group said, you need to talk to Patricia, right? So that's how I met her.
Okay.
But she is wildly connected.
Yeah.
Wildly connected. She's kin on crack. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
But she's also very modest too, which kind of surprised me. She is almost like understating who she is, I guess.
And isn't that the way we're supposed to be? Non-egoic.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
That's one of the things that I love about her is she's non-egoic.
Yeah.
She is a clear channel. In other words, she
Yeah.
doesn't mix her human ego mind into it.
Right.
She's a clear channel, and she brings you those messages. And I've seen her do some amazing work with people in clearing blocks and boundaries that come from even otherworldly beings. And she has a website now on narniaoflight.com.
Oh, okay.
I helped her set it up.
Oh, good.
Okay. Yeah.
So she is, I refer people to her all the time. And so I'm happy to tell the audience here, please check her out.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Well worth it.
Patricia, was she originally American and went to live in Mexico, or what happened? Or is she
No, she's from Washington.
Oh, okay. So why did she end up in Mexico?
Mexico is a very spiritual place.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So I was kind of curious.
And she's following the guidance of her collective. And her collective said that she needed to be in Mexico to do work. And so that's why she's there.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. She's actually coming to Texas next month to visit with me. So.
Oh, that's cool. Excited. We should have you both on the podcast.
You should definitely have her on the podcast.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a contact page on her website. Okay. She would be thrilled. Absolutely thrilled. And then she and I are both going to be keynote speakers at a conference in Oklahoma City in November, the first weekend of November.
What's the conference?
You're going to ask me that, right?
Sorry.
She's in the planning stages of it, but it's something consciousness. I'll email it to you.
Okay. All right. That's fine. I'm just curious.
Yeah, she's still in the planning stages, but Narnia, myself, Sheila Seppi. Do you know Sheila Seppi?
I know the name.
She's like an expert on walk-ins. She's going to be a keynote speaker. Also, do you know about the Mitchell Hedges skull?
Oh yeah.
We've meditated with it here in our house.
I love Bill and Catherine. They're like my
Bill,
favorite people.
Yeah.
And
Bill,
they're going to be there.
Oh, cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Bill gets around.
Yeah, Bill was at our house a couple of years ago in 2019. He was visiting a bookstore. And so he and Rob had corresponded for years. And Rob said, well, come on up and have dinner with us. So he came up and we invited 13 friends to meditate with the crystal skull. It was great.
Yeah. And it was at a time when there was a hurricane bearing down on South Florida. So part of the meditation we did with the Mitchell Hedges skull was to push the hurricane offshore, and
But we didn't push it far enough. That was
yeah,
the
well, we
problem.
pushed it right into the Bahamas.
The
If we can
Bahamas.
say,
That was
Oh
you know,
my,
you can
yeah.
see it as a synchronicity, because that's what we were doing, and that's what happened. You know.
Uh,
And
one of my
well, and
favorite.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
and also as the disembodied voice of John, the producer, I do have to bring up that we had a meditation on the YouTube channel
yeah,
with
right.
the skull,
That's
and
right.
Yeah, we
you
did.
can still go back and
okay,
find that as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
okay,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Well, one of my favorite things, that's probably not the right way to say it, but I love non-egoic people.
Mhm.
I've made a rule with my collective, my beings. I will only work with non-egoic people.
Hmm.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
Bill and Catherine, have you met Catherine?
No,
I don't think so. No.
I don't think they're married anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, wait a
Oh,
minute, Rob.
yeah, they definitely are together. So Catherine, she's an author, and she actually wrote
Oh,
the,
right.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Yeah, they're definitely still together. I participate in meditations with them
Huh.
twice a month. But they are two of the most amazing people. I love them so much. And a Narnia, so I try to surround myself with non-egoic people, people
Mhm.
who are, just loving, I mean, they have their boundaries, and you're supposed to have a boundary, right? But yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
we
Bill's
that's
great.
should
yeah.
have him on the podcast.
We did.
Yeah, Bill's been on the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Uh,
again, things
Yeah,
have
yeah.
changed.
I'd love to
Right.
have him
Yeah.
on again.
Yeah.
That'd be terrific.
It's been a few years.
And
Yeah.
I think right now maybe more important than ever, because
Yep.
I think we're headed towards some bad stuff. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's kind of shift gears here. It seems like there's a lot of division or polarity in the world right now. And can you talk a little bit about that? Is that slowing down humanity's shift towards higher awareness, higher consciousness? Is that a part of it? How does it all fit together?
I mean, it's kind of common knowledge that there is a shift that has occurred, right?
Right.
And I think there is also a lot of resistance
Yeah.
to shifting and moving higher.
Mhm.
And the resistance is what we're seeing,
Hmm.
right? There's a lot of
Makes
fear.
sense.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of fear programs. And I was just having this conversation with someone yesterday that I guess it was 2010. I was having visions of my area being completely underwater. And in my egoic mind, I thought, that is just not even possible. I'm in the middle of Texas. Okay. It's not possible. And so I started doing some research, and I found that I live probably 4 miles from Highway 35, which they don't tell us, but it's Highway 35 is built on a fault line that
Oh,
runs
wow.
straight up from Galveston, Texas to Oklahoma City.
Jeez.
They don't tell us that. And so then I understood what the vision was, that there had been the tectonic plates had,
Mhm.
shifted, and that the water had come straight up I-35. And so, of course, my property was going to be totally underwater.
Ah,
So the beings were telling me that I needed to move, and I needed to be at least 900 feet in elevation. Well, my area is some 545 feet in elevation.
mhm.
And so I started looking for places, that were higher elevation. And so they were telling me it was going to happen in 2011, not 2012, right? And so it didn't happen in 2011. And I'm like, what? You had me do, I bought property, okay? Property. And and so I said, what's going on? And that was the first time that I heard from God, creator, the beings, whoever it was, that they will install's a bad word. They will circulate fear programs
Really?
to wake up humanity.
Huh.
Okay. And if humanity reaches a particular frequency, then the devastation that they had us afraid of happening is not required.
Huh.
Okay.
Interesting.
And so then they told me, well, 2013, we're going to do something in 2013. And I prepared for that. That didn't happen. I'm like, you guys have tricks, don't you? So in other words, all of the fear programs that are happening now, they serve two purposes. One is to wake us up. Okay. Because if you think you're going to die, what's the first thing you do? You get right. You get right with your family. You get right with God. Right. And so the fear programs are meant to wake us up and bring us to a higher frequency, a higher vibration of consciousness, of awareness, of love. Right. But the other thing is that the darker aspects use the fear programs to harness energy. And so if you are buying into the fear programs and scrambling around, you're feeding the dark factions, and they exist. God created everything light and dark. There has to be contrast, right? Everything can't be la, 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 la.
So if before a hurricane, we don't rush out to the grocery store and stock up on food, does that mean it won't hit?
No.
Okay. I wasn't sure what you were.
Yeah.
There's common sense, but no, what I'm talking about is the current fear programs, right?
Okay.
That the money system is going to collapse.
Right.
I'm 69 years old. Okay. They've been talking about the money system collapsing for as long as I can remember, and it has not yet. Okay.
Right. And there's been survivalists for decades that have buried food and are ready for great disasters, and still waiting.
There's
Go ahead,
I'm sorry. Can I throw out
Yeah.
one thing about 2013 that is kind of scary under the circumstances today? Is that 2013 is when Ukraine, their setting government was replaced with the current government, and here we are. 2013 was pivotal.
Did happen.
That was pivotal. That was a pivot point in history, I do believe. But anyway,
yeah,
interesting.
I mean, I have a tornado shelter. I have common sense. Okay, throughout this planet, there are always floods. There are always tornadoes. There are always hurricanes. There are always whatever, right? There are natural disasters that have to occur to keep balance on this planet. And so having common sense, I have a tornado shelter, and it is stocked with food, because should one of those disasters occur that are meant to occur to bring balance back to my area, I want to be prepared. But there's a difference in being prepared and being afraid.
Right.
Aren't some of these experiences with the earth somewhat like release valves, like what happened in New York and on the East Coast, that it was quite a shaking going on up there, and they don't have that very often, but maybe something like that
just recently.
Just recently is like a release valve that serves to avoid something much more terrible that could be in the offing.
Well, in the perfect world, there are natural disasters that Mother Earth has to create in order to bring balance to her. You know what I mean? Think about history. history tells you that our Native American ancestors used to light fire to the grass, to prairies. They used to burn entire prairies so that the grass would come back up. Well, Mother Nature has her own process, right? She has to flood areas. She has to break up areas. She has to, turn over sometimes. But then there's HARP. Then there are these factions that try to give her help when she doesn't really need help. So some of the disasters are not natural, but we can't let that rule us, right?
But we are kind of at the mercy, because take a look at Pompeii.
Totally destroyed.
Volcanic ash and you do, as human beings, we do take our chances with building our civilizations next to incredibly powerful
volcanoes,
forces.
oceans.
Or when it comes, there are people in Hawaii right now, well, not right now, but that, built houses next to I can't think of the name of the volcano, but just an active volcano, and then wonder why they have lava in their living room. Well, it's because you're tempting fate when you do that.
I mean, Florida did the same thing, John, by building up the coasts and getting rid of the coral reefs. All those were natural barriers against hurricanes.
Sure.
See, I live in Texas, and so it's almost a joke. It's almost a joke with us about Galveston, right? Do you know how many times Galveston has been flooded? But they still keep putting up these $5 million houses on the beach, knowing that there's going to be a flood. And they're going to lose their house, but they keep building them anyway.
Martha's Vineyard right now. I mean, a lot of the people, that are very proactive as far as climate change, and have multi-million-dollar estates on a in a piece of land that's below sea level. But anyway,
right.
Look at
you
the
got to
keys.
use common sense. You can't go into fear programs about something that you should be using common sense and keeping yourself safe about, Well,
look at the Florida Keys too, John. Most of them are what, a foot above sea level, if that.
Sure. Well, well, and I mean, we went through this, several years ago with, New Orleans was just a disaster waiting to happen. They had a plan with the seawalls and stuff with, and I'm not using the correct terminology, but they had a plan. They just got, they just got like a daisical with maintaining the plan, because you don't build a city there unless you have a plan on how to hold off the coast, but anyway, or the Gulf. But
Patricia, over the decades, mediums have seen this terrible disaster coming. That's where maybe it doesn't happen all at once, but over a period of time, where the population of the earth is cut in half or less, and as some see that as ultimately to their advantage, I guess, of the survivors, if you want to be a survivor in that life. Do you see anything like that yourself?
Those were the visions that I was seeing in 2010, right?
Okay.
And so when I started doing research, I found a couple of maps. One was the U.S. Navy map, right? And one was the John Snow map. So if you look up the John Snow map, his map shows exactly what I had seen. And what I had seen was that as far as Texas is concerned, and of course I was focused on Texas, there was only the western area, right? The western tip and the eastern tip, and there was nothing in between. right? Um, and so also there's in my research, I ran across the Zeta talk, like the Zeta reticuli.
Oh, right.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Zeta Talk if you want to look that up. And I don't know if the website's still active because, like I said, this was like in 2010 or 13.
Huh.
But there was a woman who was channeling the Zetas, and they were talking to her about earth changes.
Mm-hmm.
And and you can go state by state, country by country on this. I mean, they mapped it out for her. And everything that I was seeing, the Zetas had told her.
Wow.
And she channeled this channel that she did was, I want to say, like 50 years ago. It wasn't recent.
Mm-hmm.
But they prophesied it, right? Sort of like Edgar Casey. But she had channeled this many years before I had ever found the website. But they said that far in advance, all of these changes that I was seeing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always, again, it's always been the plan that if humanity doesn't wake up and get themselves right, and that there will be severe devastation. I mean, I'm not a Bible scholar, but I seem to remember hearing something about the flood and, the great ice, the shifting of the two poles, which they say was going to happen again. So, I mean,
Edgar Casey, didn't Casey talk about that?
Right. Well, Edgar Casey saw the geography of the United States changing dramatically with, I think he said at one point, Livingston, Montana would be waterfront.
Right, waterfront. But also there was a woman, oh God, what's her name? Who did the progression in Europe and asked people what they saw for the year 2100, I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
And remember that? And there were 3 things that came back. People lived in domes. In fact, I should be able to remember that. That's what my novel is based on. People were living in domes.
She was working with a man.
I think it was Chet Snow.
Chet Snow is his name.
Chet Snow, yeah.
Chet Snow is who that map.
Yes. Okay. Right. He did the map.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. He saw 3 different futures.
Not him. It was the people they progressed.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And
something else that's interesting to listen to is what is it called? Shoots.
They hate it when that happens.
I can't remember it now. The Law of One teachings. What was it called?
Oh, wait, I have those books.
It's a recording that you can get. Anyway, that's very interesting to listen to.
Yeah.
Because that was also channeled some 30 or something years ago. And there's a lot of things in there that have come to pass.
Well,
yeah, I mean, mediums and channelers.
It's called the Raw.
Oh, yeah. We have those books.
Yeah,
Raw
we do. That's what I thought.
Right. They're kind of dense.
But there are recordings too where you actually can hear the voices when she was doing the channeling. Or was it? No, you're right. It was someone reading the book.
Okay. So it's an audio,
Audible. Yeah, it's an audible. Yeah.
Yeah, we have one other question here. We're coming to the end of our time here, but who or what is the wolf within? That sounds scary.
There's the old saying, we all have a book in us, right? And so I had been working on writing 3 books at the same time for most of my life, and nothing was happening with them. And so I happened across a Facebook ad for this guy who promised to teach you to channel your book in 3 days.
Wow.
And so I bought the program, right? And he was more like a coach, and he was amazing. It was well worth the $5 I paid for it. But he was a coach, and I worked with him for a while, and that was the name that he channeled, Feeding the Wolf Within. So the name came from him.
Okay.
And the purpose of it was, when you look at what we call the medicine of the wolf, right? The wolf is a leader
Mm-hmm.
and a teacher. And so, and a protector of his particular tribe. And so that's what the book is about. Feeding the Wolf Within is about healing your relationships. It's about learning how to protect your fields and especially if you're doing spiritual work. And so, yeah, the name of the book his name is Matt, and that's who the name of the book came from.
Yeah. So, so if we're doing meditating and doing these explorations that move into other dimensions, do we need psychic protection? Is that do you have something that you use when you go out there? Because it seems like there are some negative beings that are pretty close to the Earth environment that can disrupt us.
It sounds very small when I say this, but it's not small to me. One of my go-tos for protection is I belong to God and you can't touch that.
Oh, I love that.
That's nice.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
And so, but yes, I do teach protection techniques because, I mean, everything in this environment, this hologram that we're in, everything affects another. And because there has to be contrast, there's light and dark, positive and negative, and people it's unfortunate, but people throw curses at each other all day long. They hook each other all day long. They siphon energy off of each other all day long. And so it is necessary, it really is, to protect your fields, to clean them every once in a while, and to just make people accountable for what they're doing. So
how do you see social media when it comes to that, social networking in particular?
So I want you to do something for me, just to test something, okay? It's one of my favorite things, because I believe in tools that are simple and they take 5 seconds or less, because people forget how magical they are. So I want you to just get a feeling for your environment right now, whatever that is. Does it feel comfortable? Does it feel uncomfortable? Are you hearing the frequencies? The people call it tinnitus, but we know it's not. So, I mean, so just get a feeling for that. And now I want you to say out loud for me: shields up, mirrors out. That's all you have to do is say it.
Shields up.
Shields up, mirrors out.
Mirrors out.
Okay. Okay. And what did you notice?
I noticed an absence of the traffic sounds that were coming through my window.
No, I feel good because I'm kind of in my place. I'm good with that. Yep. This is my fortress of solitude. I'm good.
So I channel simple things that people can use, like, just really quick. I had this one guy who was such a strong empath that he couldn't touch other people, because he said when he touched people, he would receive images of everything about them, right? Jeez. And he said in his words, people suck. Okay. So,
they do.
He did not want to receive that. So I asked him one day, I said, will you just try something for me? And he knew me, so he trusted me. And I said, will you say this for me? So I want you guys to say it too. So focus on your hands And I want you to say out loud, gloves on.
Gloves on.
Gloves on.
And what did you notice?
I don't like that feeling.
I can't say that made me feel better.
I can't type with gloves on.
Yeah.
One
Okay.
thing.
Yeah. Anyways, go ahead.
It's
I'm sorry.
limiting.
Yeah.
It is. It
Feel
is.
like, yeah.
When you have gloves on, you can't feel.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
So now say gloves off.
Gloves
Gloves
off.
off.
Okay. So that worked for him. That
Wow.
one little simple act of empowerment worked
Uh-huh.
for him.
Huh.
Right. Because we were in a group and there was some iffy people in there, some that you weren't quite sure you wanted to be in the same room with. And so he did that. He said, gloves on. And I said, are you willing to just test it and touch the person next to you? And he did. And he felt nothing. He received
wow.
nothing.
But
So that was a
Interesting.
lifesaver for him, a sanity saver, right?
but
Mm.
but is
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
but maybe isn't that the point, is that it's those iffy people that we need to be able to touch and have a conversation with, especially right now with
Right.
everything going
But-
on.
I don't know if it
Okay.
works.
But,
I've tried
I
it.
don't know if it works
yeah,
either.
but remembering that I work with individuals to help empower them, balance them, right? Help them to open up their higher consciousness. So what he needed was to feel safe.
Right.
And what he needed was to feel protected from other people's energies. And just saying that made him feel safe,
Huh.
made him feel protected. It doesn't matter a second whether or not I believe it worked.
Right.
He believed it worked.
Mhm.
But maybe even gave him confidence to talk to those people, because
Yeah.
he
Right.
was
Well-
he was grounded and understood where he was at, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Ah.
that's what he needed. And that's what I provide to people. I provide them simple tools that empower them, make them feel safe, and help them connect in a greater way.
Huh.
There you go. Yep.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
I love it. Well,
Okay.
Patricia, tell people where they can find you, find your books, all that stuff.
All my books are on Amazon.
Okay.
3 of them are on Audible now.
Okay.
And so, the third one was uploaded. Hall of Records was uploaded the other day. I don't know. I haven't gotten a notice from Amazon, so I don't think it's live yet.
Uh-huh.
But so Feeding the Wolf Within and Conscious Enlightenment and Expansion are on Audible. So all the books are on Audible. I'm on Amazon. My website is patriciawalls.net. And
You're on
I've got
Facebook?
a lot of, yeah, I'm on
Okay.
Facebook. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. I'm on
Okay.
YouTube. The YouTube is Patricia Walls. But on my website, patriciawalls.net, all of those links are there.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
So
great.
just start there.
Okay.
Very
You hear
good.
that, audience? Stop there.
Yep.
Start there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to send you a Narnia's information. Please
Yes,
invite
that'd be
her.
great.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
she'd be a great guest. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be terrific. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
John, when is this episode going out?
It will be tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay.
Ah, okay.
We'll send you the link, Patricia.
Okay, good. Well, thank you all for inviting
Oh,
me.
thank
I
you. This has
enjoyed
been
it.
great. I really
Yeah, it's
enjoyed
great.
this.
All
Thank
right.
you
Well,
very
I'll
much.
see you soon.
Okay.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye
Thank
now.
you.
Bye.